currently listening to CJSF 90.1 FM, broadcasting from Burnaby. Also on 93.9 cable FM, streaming and broadcasting at cjsf.ca, and on TELUS HD TV channel 706. Boris, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing, Curtis?
Not too bad. I'm just kind of going through the motions here. We're going to kind of do our training tape for Dan. So let's talk about Super Meat Boy and Tofu Boy.
For sure. I love that game.
They're currently having a really lovingly relationship, and I think kind of shows a little bit about the gaming industry. So, as some people might not be aware of, there's a game out there called Super Meat Boy. The game's actually pretty popular. It's right now currently on Steam. It's also a Flash game, and it's also on Xbox. It's been pretty popular. The story goes that the developers of the game, they started kind of going on PETA's messaging board, and started kind of posting about the game as anonymously as they could be. And in a way, they kind of spurred a response from PETA. PETA then released a game called Super Tofu Boy. Now, as an alternative to Super Meat Boy, Super Tofu Boy is not meat. Now, there's something a little bit weird about this, Boris, because if you kind of think about it, Super Meat Boy is just a skinless man, which is gross. I'm not kind of saying that's cool, but he is definitely not made up of cow parts or goat parts. So PETA is kind of, why PETA has a stake in this is kind of weird to me.
Was that a pun? Had a stake in this?
Had a stake in this. I think that was an unintentional pun. I think if there was a sound effect board that I had going here, I would have a sound effect for that. But it's kind of weird because they sort of just came out of nowhere, and now it's kind of weird because both sides are kind of using this as a promotional tool, which I find funny. You know, Super Meat Boy, the devs are kind of saying, well, this is great because, you know, our game is actually getting known by people across the country and the world because a whole bunch of mainstream outlets are picking up on this and saying, well, look at PETA, what PETA's doing. What I kind of find more interesting, too, is kind of how the developers of Super Meat Boy responded. They then took that and they added Tofu Boy into their game, Super Meat Boy. Now, Tofu Boy is horrible in the game. If you've tried playing as him, he can't jump, he can't run, he can't do anything. And in a tweet, they kind of, the developer said, oh, enjoy the iron deficiency. So there's some little jabbing going back and forth. I kind of think it's a little bit kind of preconceived, because why else would this have happened unless the Super Meat Boy guys kind of had this in mind beforehand? Now, obviously, there's the question of how they obviously kind of talked to the people behind PETA on their message boards anonymously. But then they also had Tofu Boy kind of ready to roll out when PETA's response came out in terms of Super Tofu Boy. So obviously there's a little bit of a response there, and it's kind of weird because I think both sides are sort of playing off each other, and it's kind of weird, but we'll see where that goes. And, you know, there's a really funny joke. I don't know, I kind of find it funny. It's a little politically incorrect, but Super Meat Boy dev said, how many PETA members does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. PETA can't change anything. Which, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that. PETA does some good stuff, but at the same time, I think this jabbing back and forth is kind of immature, especially when these are supposed to be independent developers, and, you know, they should be kind of a little bit more mature than that, I would say. All right.
Which brings us to our break right now.
So we're going to play a progressive radio promo here, so hopefully you guys enjoy.
Progressive Radio, Tuesdays from 10:30 to 11 a.m. on CJSF. Tune in for lively and in-depth conversations about urgent issues of the day, hosted by editor of the Progressive magazine, Matthew Rothschild. Listen to interviews with activists, scholars, and artists who are making the world a better place.
All right, so we're back. Boris, before we went to break, I was kind of telling you about a certain game that was unveiled on German TV, of all places. Now, I have a question for you. When was the last time you ever played a Dreamcast, if ever?
Probably before high school, like early 2000.
Yeah, see, I never owned a Dreamcast, but a lot of the games that were on Dreamcast, I ended up sort of loving after the Dreamcast kind of passed away. Crazy Taxi, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. A lot of those games kind of stayed with me. So I never really had a personal stake in Dreamcast, but then again, there were some good games on it. Funny enough, there is a new game, not an old game or a re-release, a new game coming out for Dreamcast. The Dreamcast was discontinued back in 2001, but Red Spots Games is working on a brand new Dreamcast game called Stormwind. I kind of looked at this game, and it was kind of like a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. It kind of seemed pretty interesting. I don't really know what to make of that because it's kind of like, I think you guys are a little late to the party. I think we're a few more console generations in. I think they should have maybe put this out on Xbox Live Arcade or PSN or even Steam. But I don't know. Maybe it's the same reason people like vinyls, right? They sort of like that nostalgic feel to something. I guess. What do you think?
Time to dust off my Dreamcast.
I know. Play some shmups, hey?
Yeah.
I wonder if the online still works on that. All right. So we're going to currently listen to a PSA. So hope you guys enjoy.
Want to learn about something? Want to be entertained but don't have a clue how? Look up at the library. Vancouver Public Library have events happening all the time, like the celebration of Chill's independence featuring music and poetry. There is so much to choose from. For more information, go to vpl.ca.
Alright, so we're back. And we got another promo before we kind of talk about our last little news item. So stay tuned for after the break.
Want to learn about something? Want to be entertained but don't have a clue how? Look up at the library. Vancouver Public Library have events happening all the time, like the celebration of Chill's independence featuring music and poetry. There is so much to choose from. For more information, go to vpl.ca.
So you were kind of telling me while we were talking on MSN the other day about the Grammys finally recognizing video games. Can you maybe explain that a bit for me?
Yeah, for you game music nerds are probably going to be really happy about this. So the theme song from Civilization 4, which was composed by a guy named Christopher Tin, got his song nominated in the Grammys, which is the first song in a video game that got nominated for a Grammy. And it's in the category of, let me look this up, the best instrumental arrangement accompanying vocalists, right? The song sounds really epic. It's kind of like Lion King-esque, which suits the game really well. Do you ever play Civ 4?
I have played Civilization Revolution, which I know was kind of more of a console-specific version, but it was pretty cool. Boris, I think the listeners and myself would both love to listen to the song, so I think we're going to end the show today by just kind of playing that song.
For sure.
So I guess we'll see you guys next week. This is our lost episode. I think we'll have to note that down, and if we ever get really popular, we'll release it as like a hidden gem. All right, so taking us out is the song Baba Yetu. All right, see you next week.